Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Kissin, Director of Marketing with Zahn Dental. I'm here with Rick Godair from Edge Dental Solutions. Rick, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How about
Thanks.
yourself?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining me today. We are at an interesting point when we're talking about digitization on the removable side of the business. And your lab, you've seen it firsthand. You are a removable dental laboratory that has gone or is going through the transition from analog to digital. Can you share what that experience has been like for you with the audience?
Well, my experience is kind of lengthy. I have owned a couple of small crown and bridge labs, and I saw where digital took the crown and bridge industry. And I had the opportunity when I was with my previous employer to work on a project with a couple of major companies, including 3Shape, to print the first commercially available digital dentures. So I've been in this game since printing actually became a thing. I've used several printers, several materials, and I really like the Trusana product. Um, it gives a nice, detailed tooth with good translucency. It's hard to tell once it's polished that it's a printed tooth.
You mentioned being in the game and the printing game for a while. It seems like over the last year, 2 years, that printing digital dentures has really taken on more momentum. Yes, Crown and Bridge has gone through this transition years ago with milling and subtractive technologies. Why do you think printing, specifically digital dentures, is starting to take off over the last year or so?
When it first started, all the materials were linked to specific printers. So if you wanted to print this, you had to have this printer. If you wanted to print that, you had to have a different printer. Now, as there are more printer options and the material is maturing to the point where there's better options and different avenues, I think that's what it is. The price point is coming down so that more people can afford the printers, and it's not just the big guys. And the material costs are starting to come down, but you're not limited with a material that's linked to one specific printer. And I think the more open the industry is, the more open labs are going to be to using the product. I mean, for a small lab, it's a huge investment. And it's one that they have to know that they're not locked into just one item for one printer.
You specifically mentioned Trusana by name. What has your experience been so far with printing premium dentures and really getting your hands on a final denture using Trusana?
We had the honor of being a beta lab for Trusana. So it allowed us to get an early view on it. And I loved it from the start. Uh, the prints are very clean. You don't have to do a lot of adjustments. You don't have to necessarily change your workflow when you're working with it. So if you already print, it fits easily into your current workflow. And the amount of isopropanol we use has been drastically reduced. It disperses into the alcohol. Isopropyl is getting extremely expensive due to COVID and everything else. So by limiting the amount that we have to use and the amount, how often it gets turned over, that saves us a great deal of money. We do a premium printed denture where we use Trusana teeth. We use a milled base and then the printed teeth. For try-ins, we're using the printed material for the base and the Trusana teeth. Once the Trusana base becomes available or FDA cleared, then we'll use the base as well as the teeth for a premium printed denture.
So, in your experience, right, it always has seemed like there's a stigma in the industry that you can't print premium dentures and teeth. And if you want a premium denture, you have to use a carded tooth, and you can't compare the tooth. In your experience, are you getting premium results when you're printing Trusana teeth?
Yeah, we are. I mean, the nice thing about printing is that you can gain more detail. When you mill, you have to go back and clean things up, clean the interproximals up, do a lot of things to make it more like a real tooth. Whereas the printed tooth, you don't have to. Even with the bases, you can print undercuts, whereas in milling them, you're really limited on the kind of cases you can mill because you can't mill in those deep undercuts. So it's a very nice product. It's very strong. It's got just the right amount of translucency. And even with the milled teeth, light transmission, the same as in ceramics, has a lot to do with how live that tooth looks. If you can't get light into it, then the tooth looks rather dead. But the light transmission is fantastic.
With Trusana, and you mentioned some of the chemical and physical properties, but when it comes to dentures and being in a patient's mouth ultimately for X amount of time, how does the water absorption and the rate and the actual characteristics, how important is that to a laboratory when you're choosing a printed or regular carded tooth solution?
Extremely important. Trusana's got an excellent surface hardness, which means you can put a very solid polish on it, and the polish is going to stay. Whereas some of the other print materials, once it's finished, it has a sticky or a soft surface, and you really have to work with it to get a polish on it. When you do that, you get deeper into the outside process layer, and it's not as sealed. Whereas if it's got a good surface hardness and you have to just polish it with minimal amount of effort, and you get a clean, glossy surface, then you're not going to have as much penetration from moisture or anything else. When a denture can absorb a lot of moisture, then that comes to the mouth, that can turn into calcification inside of the material, and that can lead to breakage. Printing is relatively new, so the longest long-term testing in the mouth is probably about 3 or 4 years. And we're starting to see a lot of breakages with the earlier materials that were porous because they do break down. Whereas Trusana, with being able to get a good polish and having good surface hardness, I don't see that will be as big an issue.
You talked a lot about the workflow and why it makes production sense, but talk to me about printing on Asiga and what it's been like for you when you pair Trusana with Asiga and how that process has been.
I like Asiga because it's simple. The nesting is quick and clean and easy, and it's a solid, accurate printer. It's a workhorse. It's a beast. Ours runs probably 16 hours a day. And the only reason it doesn't run 24 is because I don't have anybody here to man them.
What would you say to the traditional lab, right? It's no secret that there are labs that are specifically removable labs that are maybe slower or haven't adopted digital technology, or it's not ready. I can do it. I can set up. I can do the analog process myself, and it'll be premium in my lab. What would you say to those labs or small businesses or medium-sized businesses or even large laboratories that haven't fully embraced digital technology?
We've got 8 analog labs in our group, and gradually we're moving those people, those labs, into a digital workflow because manpower is a huge issue in the industry now. Some folks have been around as long as I have, which I've been in the industry about 40 years. So we need to bring new people into the industry. Digital helps with that because if you have basic computer skills and you've got good hand skills, it's really easy to learn. Look at little kids when they're trying to learn a foreign language, they suck it up. Adults struggle with it. And the reason is there's always a roadblock. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And the truth is, it's really not that hard. It's actually fun. Um, and it takes a little bit of a load off because that machine's working for you while you're doing something else. So you can increase your workflow by allowing that machine to be that extra employee.
It's interesting hearing your experiences because you've seen it firsthand. Like you mentioned, you've been in the industry for 40 years, and it sounds like you've gotten to a point where a workflow just makes sense for you and your laboratory. And oh, by the way, now you're able to print premium dentures or premium teeth with Trusana.
Correct. It's finding the right materials and being able to trust those materials and being able to have that consistency takes a load off.
Rick, really appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of you, Edge Dental Solutions, in the future. Thanks for joining me today.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good one.